Season 1 of Star Wars The Bad Batch has finally wrapped with episode 16, Kamino Lost. This was part 2 of our season finale, and while I very much enjoyed the episode, I feel like the finale as a whole fell a little flat for me. Sure, it had great moments here and there, but I guess I was just expecting more, which really isn't fair of the show seeing as it's only its first season, but I think the episode did what it needed to finish up the opening arc for the Bad Batch, and there's plenty of room for exploration in Season 2, which I am very much looking forward to. But let's talk about the finale. Episode 16 of The Bad Batch is entitled Kamino Lost and finishes the first season story. We pick up right where we left off. Admiral Rampart is decimating Tapoka City with the Bad Batch still trapped inside. It's still very stressful to watch as the part of the city that they are currently in is sinking to the bottom of the ocean floor, and the fact that they have Crosshair with them now only makes matters worse, because no one is entirely sure if they can trust him or not. They really want to, but they're just not certain, and I feel like this was the best way to go about the story. Since it had already been established that Crosshair had removed his inhibitor chip, he's acting on his own now and is still loyal to the Empire, so he really could choose to shoot them all in the back at any given moment, so it definitely adds more suspense to an already stressful situation. But even with Crosshair's motives out in the open, Omega still refuses to leave anyone behind. When Crosshair is moments away from drowning, Omega still risks her life with AZ to help him, which again shows how caring Omega is. But at the same time, it's still dangerous since Crosshair is technically after her as well. And even with everything going on around them, Crosshair still has the audacity to blame it on Hunter's poor leadership skills. Even when Hunter explains that the Empire opened fire on the city, Crosshair doesn't seem to give it a second thought. Hunter even seems fed up with it, telling Crosshair that if he wants to stay here and die, then it's his call. It's almost like Hunter has lost all of his patience for Crosshair. He's tried several times over and over to get him back with the Bad Batch, and Crosshair just keeps throwing it back in his face every time. I will say as a whole, both episodes did a great job of showing scenery. The first part showed the empty areas of the facility after the evacuation, but now we're seeing those areas being ripped apart. You can feel the sadness coming from the Bad Batch as they slowly watch their home break apart into absolutely nothing, especially during their escape when Omega stops to look out of one of the viewing windows, seeing water flood the entire city, shutting down the power. And it's matched up perfectly with outer shots of the city sinking right before our eyes and finally crashing to the bottom of the ocean, and it's truly heartbreaking. I was just about to finish the first grade when Attack of the Clones came out on VHS, so seeing Tapoka City, a location I grew up with, sink to the bottom of the ocean is just so sad. And the emotions only swell as the Bad Batch continue their escape and end up back in their old room. Thankfully, their room happens to have landed on the underwater tunnel system, which they then use to try to get back to the Marauder, which is still parked on the hidden landing pad. And this might be my favorite moment in the episode, because we get a great conversation with Wrecker, Tech, and Crosshair. As they make their way through the underwater tube system, Wrecker gets upset, saying that Crosshair is the reason that they're in this situation. Tech steps in to stop the argument by saying that there's nothing Wrecker can do, it's just in Crosshair's nature. Wrecker can't change that, and neither can Crosshair. And it even confuses Crosshair a little bit and asks why Tech is defending him, to which Tech replies, "Understanding you does not mean I agree with you." And I just love that. Another life lesson learned from Star Wars, and it fits with their characters so well. However, the moment does not get to last long as a giant sea creature decides to start attacking the tube system. The electricity around the city is what was keeping everything safe, but now that the electricity is shut off, it is open season for any willing creature. And because of this, the Bad Batch have to make a panicked rush up the tube system before the place floods. After making their way up the tube system, they end up back in Nala Se's private lab, only to discover that the next tube they would take is destroyed and the platform is not reachable, so they have to find another way out. This is where the stress level really skyrockets. They decide to use medical capsules to float their way up to the surface, and the moment I saw Hunter and Crosshair get into the same capsule, I immediately thought, oh no, this is going to be awful and something is going to happen. But sure enough, they all make it up to the surface, except for Omega, whose capsule gets trapped by a piece of debris. AZ ends up sacrificing himself by using up the rest of his emergency power to ensure that Omega makes it to the surface. But before she can, she leaves the capsule to go after AZ, which was not the right choice, as AZ is still a droid and therefore very heavy, so in the process of saving them, they both start to sink. Hunter says he's about to go in after her when Crosshair pulls out his gun on Hunter. Literally the worst time to do this, but Crosshair angles his shot and shoots a harpoon directly into the ocean, tagging AZ, pulling both AZ and Omega back up to the surface, showing that while Crosshair is still for the Empire, he still cares for his family. The ending of the season is sad, but in a different way. They all stand on the platform with the Marauder, and after everything that has happened, Crosshair still chooses to stay with the Empire, claiming that everything that just happened doesn't change anything, and the Bad Batch just leaves him there on the platform. The one thing about the scene that I really love is that this is the first time we ever see Kamino during the day, and I mean perfect day. It's not raining, there are no clouds in the sky, it's just the bright blue oceans against the bright blue sky, and it's really beautiful, with the exception of the smoke rising from the remains of Tapoka City, of course. But still, it's just a breathtaking shot that I never thought we would get to see. The final scene is where all the speculation starts, though. We come across an Imperial facility where Nala Se is being escorted off of a shuttle by Imperial commandos to meet with what looks like the head of the newly founded Imperial cloning program. This new character resembles Dr. Pershing in so many ways, from the uniform to the glasses she's wearing, and this may be where we get some tie-ins with The Mandalorian, with the beginning of the cloning of Emperor Palpatine, which gives us the end of Season 1. I will say, out of all of the Star Wars shows, The Bad Batch probably had the most successful first season, and I truly loved the show. Rebels still is my all-time favorite, but The Bad Batch may be working its way up to that #1 spot. I'm loving all of the characters, and I'm really looking forward to what will happen in Season 2. I really hope Crosshair comes around, however, I feel that things will start to grow more dark. Thankfully, everyone was able to survive the first season, but that does not mean that there will always be the case. As great as the show is, there's only so many ways it can end. But that's everything I have to say about Kamino Lost. What did you think of the episode? Did you like the season finale? Do you think there should have been more? And what do you think the focus should be for Season 2? Let me know all of your thoughts in the comments below. Be sure to like the video and subscribe if you haven't. And remember, the Force will be with you. Always.